Welcome back to the Mina Show featuring Lenny, the only podcast. One of the hosts' favorite free agents are Rasheed Walker, Quay Walker, Kenneth Walker. You sensing a theme? The man just loves being walked, or the dog. That's Lenny. I'm Mina Kimes. I am joined to talk about free agency by the one, the only, it's been too long, Field Yates. Welcome back to the show.
It's great to be back with you, Mina. Happy sort of off season. People always ask me, and I'm sure you get the same question, like, once the Super Bowl is over, what do you do for the next 6 or 7 months? And I remind them that the NFL has mastered the art of being relevant for like 350 days a year. Those 2 weeks, like late June, early July, can be a little quiet. But in some ways, we're about to get to some fans, the more exciting part of the year. So I am pumped about free agency, which when you and I are talking right now is 4 weeks and 1 day away from officially beginning.
The combine is next week, so I am also starting to dive into the prospects. Field, of course, is one of our excellent draft experts at ESPN and one of the hosts of the First Draft podcast. So I'm excited to talk to you about the draft also in the coming months. But I thought, I find it very useful to talk about free agency before I even start thinking about prospects and teams, because it's going to largely determine needs and whatnot. And there's a lot of exciting free agents. It was interesting going through the class. So in the second half of the podcast, we're going to talk about some of the biggest names, where they might end up, what kind of markets they might command. But the first half of this pod, we're just going to talk about the quarterbacks. Because Field, there are a lot of teams that need them right now. Evergreen every year. And this is tied to the draft because I've started watching the quarterbacks and there's not a lot. So, and I'll get into all of that. But so I thought it might be useful. There's a bunch of names, obviously, not just free agents, but potential trade candidates amongst the quarterbacks. But I thought it might be useful to focus on the teams that need them first. So I'm going to read them to you. And I want you to pick a team that you find the most interesting from the perspective of what they're going to do in the quarterback, and we can start with them. The teams that I've listed, let me know if you think I've left anyone out.
Okay.
Minnesota, I know that they have a young rookie quarterback, but they are obviously. Indianapolis, Miami, Pittsburgh, the Jets, the Browns, the Falcons,
Cardinals?
And the Cardinals. Yeah. I was like, okay, I'll put the Cardinals last. Yeah. Okay. So did I leave any teams out, first of all?
Those are the obvious ones.
It's 8.
Okay. We're putting the Raiders aside, by the way. Fernando Mendoza, go check out real estate in Henderson. It's a great suburban community in Las Vegas. You'll love it.
What a year to have the first pick. I really feel that way after watching these quarterbacks. Okay. So which of those teams do you find most interesting? Let's just jump right in.
Okay. So I don't know if the fact that you couldn't quite get Arizona out when you were going through the first 7 is a sign that you don't find them interesting. I'll tell you why I find the Arizona Cardinals interesting.
They are,
They are. They have the 3rd pick in the draft, which in a lot of years would put you right into quarterback territory. Arizona, I don't think is in quarterback territory because I feel like the over-under for quarterbacks taken in the first round is 1.5. One, obviously, being Fernando Mendoza. We can have a Ty Simpson debate for the next 65 days, Mina, up until the draft. The bottom line is some people say clearly not a first-round talent. Some people say he's a first-round guy and he'll probably get pushed up because there's not a lot of quarterbacks in this class. Where do you go if you're Arizona, though? Because you have the 3rd pick in the draft, salary cap, the books are relatively clean, right? This isn't a team that's sort of held down by a bunch of terrible contracts. I think you and I probably like some of the pieces on this roster more than the average football fan does. I just don't know what the step is right now for Arizona. Kyler Murray is gone. We can talk about Kyler in the next few minutes. I'm sure he will be gone one way or the other from Arizona. I don't think...
Wait. You think? You think that's a short thing? Let's dive into that.
One way or another, I think Kyler Murray is gone. I think this is a classic. Both sides need a change of scenery. It's over. How we actually get there is the only part that, to me, remains to be determined.
Okay, let's live there, because that is the core question with Arizona, is how we get there.
Yep.
I think the reason why I was a little bit like, whoa, taking it back, is because it's a really tough cut financially.
Yep.
A trade, very reasonable.
Yep.
Well, in modern NFL parlance, it'd still be a pretty big cost.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like if you're Arizona, I would not, personally, I don't know what they'll do, I would not feel good about a cut at all. I mean, I actually should have probably put up, it's a massive, massive cap hit.
The dead cap
Especially,
ramifications are bad. Yeah.
yeah, especially because I don't view Kyler Murray as 2023 or 2024 Russell Wilson with the Broncos.
Yep.
He's, I think, younger, better. There's still upside there. And I'm not saying that he is their future or whatever, but you know what I mean? Like, feel like if you can trade him, that's one thing, but like a cut would be, I mean, you're going to be bad. Like,
yes. Yeah.
For a while. I don't know. That's tough.
Yeah, this is one where I think it goes beyond like the financials and like the skill set relative to all 32 starting quarterbacks next year. Like Kyler might be, I'm picking this number completely arbitrarily, the 21st best starting quarterback going into next season, Mina. And the Cardinals, I think this is just one where the player needs a fresh set of circumstances and the team, it's just time to make a move and go in a different direction here. You've got a new head coach, an offensive-minded head coach. Let's pivot. Let's work towards a more sustainable future. So for those that are not like deep into the salary cap weeds, yes, as Mina referenced.
Pulling it out right now.
If you just flat out cut Kyler Murray, you're going to take a massive dead salary cap charge, which, again, for those who don't spend time like reading the collective bargaining agreement, A, congratulations on having a life. That's more important. And B, it means that your salary cap is going to have a certain allocation of dollars that's going to be on a player not with that team anymore, or not on the contract that player signed to incur all of that dead money. So it's basically salary cap space that's going to nothing. Mina, the number has to be like, what, 50 plus million for Kyler Murray?
So I had it in front of me. So I probably should have had this for the job. So pre-June release, 54 this year, 77 next year, post-June, 70 this year. And you're not saving cap. Yeah. So it's not appealing this offseason. Trade him, though, and it's very manageable. Yeah, trade him. If you trade him before June 1st, it's only, this is according to Spotrac, a $18 million cap hit with $35 million in savings. And it's also manageable post-June, but it would be pre. So there's major, like, if you're the Cardinals, and they've been very like, we don't know what's going to happen, right? It's not like 2-0 where it's like, we that's over. Yeah. Arizona's been a little bit more, but I believe it's in large part because of the massive advantage they would get from trading him and the realism. He's 29. Like, let's go there. Of the teams, did any of the teams I named jump out as a potential trade partner for him?
So I think that before I give my answer, because I've already used this team previously, and fans, analysts, reporters that cover this team have sort of scoffed at this notion. When we've acknowledged that it's not a buyer's market in the draft and free agency / the trade market, you're not going to exactly have like a bunch of obvious great options. So I go to Minnesota here, Mina, and the sort of algebra, the calculus behind this is not because like Kyler Murray screams anything along the lines of Kirk Cousins or Sam Darnold or Daniel Jones or guys who the team has had on the roster either as a starter or a player in Daniel Jones that they thought maybe they could bring him aboard and potentially bring him back as a free agent, see if he would stick around for a while. We'll see. Or J.J. McCarthy, the 10th overall pick in the draft just a couple of years. Stylistically, Kyler is very different than those people. It's the acknowledgement that you have an excellent quarterback tutor in Kevin O'Connell. You have a team that does not want to have another year where the quarterback play is the anchor that holds them down from competing for the playoffs. And there's not a lot of great options here, right? Like, yeah, sure, it'd be great if the Vikings could dip their toe into the veteran quarterback market and find another version of Sam Darnold, but like that doesn't exist this year. So while Kyler is not the archetype that Kevin O'Connell has thrived with in recent years, I do think he is an upgrade over J.J. McCarthy based off what we know right now. And I think that this could be a reasonably low risk maneuver for Minnesota because it's basically a 1-year flyer.
It's right? Big deal. Yeah. After, like, so the trading partner, it's not onerous at all. Yeah. Like, and you can get out of it pretty quickly. And I think that the low risk part is what jumps out to me here. You're not like, because it's so much more advantageous for Arizona to trade it. I don't think you'd have to give up a lot to get it.
It might be, honestly, Mina, like there are some people that have pondered whether, I'll use Minnesota just to extrapolate this example out a little bit. Minnesota sends Arizona a pick, Arizona sends them back Kyler Murray and a pick as well, right? Or maybe it gets to the point where the market is soft enough that somebody says, hey, here's Kyler Murray plus a pick for an inferior pick, right? Like it's not quite the Brock Osweiler, but it's something along those lines. So I think Arizona has some out cards here on Kyler, which is why I don't think he's going to return to the team next year. Is that like with Miami and Tua, I think they probably land on just cutting him and they just say, we're taking our medicine and this is just going to be a year of getting our books back in order. With Arizona, it's not quite that. You can split the atom a little bit where you can either recoup a little bit of value or not hurt yourself so bad. But I think Arizona, Kyler are done. I do believe that. I would be very surprised if Kyler is back with this team in 2026.
I would rather trade for Kyler Murray than Tua Tagovailoa.
By far.
And it's not close to me. And I guess so just to focus on Minnesota for a quick second. First of all, they have to bring in competition. I understand there's Vikings fans who said, well, JJ looks a little better at the end of the season. That's fine. Give him a chance, but you can't.
Did you see who you played in those games, Mina? Do you remember? Bill Barlow covered this recently, but the Commanders, the Cowboys, the Giants, I mean, it was like Cupcake City. It was the teams that you'd expect J.J. McCarthy to throw the football against effectively because those teams made every quarterback look like Pro Bowl level quarterbacks.
Your other options, as we talked about, are Malik Willis, who's kind of the belle of the free agent ball. We'll talk about him. Obviously, he's going to come up as a potential option for a few of these teams that we mentioned. Daniel Jones, who is coming off the midseason Achilles. Kirk Cousins. Possible.
Little bit, yeah.
Rodgers.
Yep.
We know there was some Rodgers was interested in them last offseason.
Yep.
Anthony Richardson, Flyer.
Yep.
Mac Jones, sounds like the Niners are not going to move off of him it would take a lot. And then Russell, Jameis, Mariota, Geno, you could just put it in. And I don't think the Raiders are going to, it's not advantageous for them to cut Geno either. So, so really to me, it's like Murray, Joe or Cousins, Rodgers are the three that I'm looking at. Very different quarterbacks. Rodgers and Cousins would cost less, but Murray is there's a much more upside in that choice if you're Minnesota.
Yeah. It's short and long-term upside. Like I would argue that Murray is as talented as those other two at this juncture of their career. Is he as consistent? Kyler Murray is not exactly the paragon of consistency amongst NFL quarterbacks. But on top of that there's a world, we talked about this as a low-risk maneuver because it's basically a one-year commitment. He's 29, which amongst quarterbacks in the NFL, like if things go well this year, Mina, he could just be your guy for the next 3 to 4 years. So whereas with Rodgers, it's an acknowledgement that we're doing this. It's a one-year experiment. You know, he may not even play at all next year in the NFL. So even if you do get him to Minnesota, 42-year-old for a one-year deal means that you're going to be back in this spot again, basically no matter what next year. Whereas with Kyler, sort of like where the Colts have landed with Daniel Jones, who I think they end up bringing him back. It's like it was a one-year deal, but like it went so well for the first however many games it was before he got hurt that in their own eyes, I think it's let's make this our partnership going forward.
Let's talk about Malik Willis.
Yeah.
Because so for the other thing about Minnesota is they're way over the cap right now. There's things they could do to clear some of that.
A lot of pen swipes there for sure.
Yeah. But some of the teams I mentioned do have a decent amount of cap space. And I want to hear your thoughts on how much Malik Willis will make. But first, let's talk about destinations. So in my mind, the three teams that jumped out were Pittsburgh, Miami, and the Jets, which I haven't heard anyone say, but I keep looking at the Jets and trying to figure out what they'll do. The Jets, by the way, have a tremendous amount of cap space.
Yeah.
I don't know what the hell else they'll do at quarterback. So I want to put them in the mix here because I keep hearing Pittsburgh and Miami, and I think those are the two that make the most sense. But I'm going to throw the Jets in there. So of the three teams, which do you like the most as a potential Malik Willis destination?
I would throw Arizona, by the way, back in that mix as well. Not to make this an entirely Cardinals-based podcast, but Mike LaFleur did not coach Malik Willis, but of course his brother did, Matt LaFleur. So I'm sure there's great levels of like, if there are any questions about Malik Willis, there's no better resource than his brother and best friend, Matt. I like Pittsburgh more than I like Miami because I like the idea of giving yourself a credible chance to make some improvement here. Pittsburgh has fallen into the pool of average offensively for like half a decade now. I'm going to rule out the Jets for this reason, Mina. A lot of the comps, contract-wise, for Malik Willis, many people have thought this could be like a Justin Fields type contract from last year. For those that don't recall, 2 years, $40 million for Justin Fields, 30 of which was guaranteed. I don't think the Jets would want to go down this path. Ownership might say, hey, if this is risky at all, would we really want to fall into this trap in back-to-back years? I think the Jets also, because they have 5 first-round picks between this year and next, Mina, can say to themselves, if we want to be patient, we'll be patient. And we'll make the quarterback move when we're ready, as opposed to trying to rush things just to fill, admittedly, the most important part of the roster. But we're not going to settle for anything other than a guy that we think can change our franchise for a long time. So I get back to Pittsburgh there. Miami, there's familiarity, of course. But Pittsburgh, difference maker at quarterback, right? It's been a while. They've been stuck with quarterbacks that have not been difference makers. Aaron Rodgers was obviously solid last year, but like push comes to shove, you're playing the Houston Texans, you have no chance whatsoever in the playoffs. Malik Willis is somewhat of an unknown. He's got a much smaller sample size of starts than many of the quarterbacks that we've mentioned as free agent targets this offseason, but he's also younger, and his tape over the past couple of years is probably as good as anybody's, right? I mean, the accuracy has been ridiculous. He is a legitimate tool threat quarterback, and it seems like those 2 years in Green Bay may have been about like as impactful of quarterback tutoring as any quarterback has received in the league. I mean, think about where he was value-wise when the Titans traded him. He got a 7th-round pick in return, a 3rd-round pick, traded for a 7th-round pick, and he played legit good football when he had to step in for Jordan Love over these past 2 seasons.
I really like Pittsburgh for him. Yeah. I think that's the best destination. First of all, I think it makes sense for both sides. From Pittsburgh's point of view, this is not, you talk about the Jets, that's a rebuilding team. The Dolphins, they're not good. They're not a Malik Willis away from, you know what I mean? Like there's so many other needs on that roster. And also, I think they are teams that are going to have to go, that you want them to have a young quarterback like next year. You know, this is just, the timeline doesn't make sense for me. Pittsburgh is a team that should be competing now. Obviously, they were in the postseason. And they have cap space. They're 9th overall right now. And I like the stylistic fit with the players. I've always been a fan of Willis. So much so that when he was drafted, I really wanted Seattle to take him in the 2nd round. I remember that. And watching him over the last few years, I'm so impressed by his development. I think that's something with quarterbacks that I have increasingly come to value. Like, is this guy getting better? He reminds me a little bit of Hurts insofar, a lot actually. Yeah. Insofar as like when I envision what an offense for him should look like, it is one with a dominant run game where he is a part of that run game, and he's more of a dual threat than Hurts. And because of that dominant run game, he's able to get one-on-ones outside, and he throws a gorgeous go ball. And DK Metcalf is right there. I think the Steelers' run game was actually decent last season. I think it would be even better with Willis. You have an ascending, a lot of good young players on the offensive line. They obviously need another receiver and whatnot, but Metcalf to me is just like such a good fit with his style. So I would love that. I think a Pittsburgh team with Malik Willis, like that is instantly intriguing to me. And I get why Miami would be interested. I get why some of the other teams would be interested. But if I'm Willis as well, the Steelers to me make more sense than those teams.
For sure. I mean, if you want to go have a chance to win right now, Miami might make sense to him just because John Eric Sullivan, their GM, was part of the staff that traded for him. Jeff Hafley, the defensive coordinator for the Packers these past couple of seasons. So there's, that knowledge of the player. And by the way, like I don't know this for a fact, but if you're Malik Willis, there might be some of you that has an affinity for any and all things Green Bay, given that when your career was basically at its nadir, they said, we want you, right? Even if it was just for a 7th-round pick, like, we want you. So maybe John Eric Sullivan has developed or did develop a relationship as a result of that. So perhaps Miami is appealing there, Mina. But if you want a chance to go and compete right away, even if I think that the Steelers with Malik Willis are still, maybe the second or third best team in their own division. We'll see how things shake out with Cincinnati specifically this offseason. I do think Baltimore will be back on track next year. But still, like I give them more playoff equity than I would the Dolphins, who I don't want to say that I don't care what they do at all this offseason, but there are very few scenarios in which Miami this offseason, given all the money they had to sort of figure out with the players they've released, that they're going to get back on track this year. Like this is going to be kind of like take your medicine for Miami for a season and start to build this thing up back from not quite the studs, but close to it. We're pretty low.
Just so many needs in the trenches. The defense has so many holes. This is a rebuilding Dolphins team. And, Dolphins fans, that's at least you're taking your medicine, which is a good thing. They could have dragged it out with those players and Tua and whatnot. But yeah, the timeline doesn't make sense for me. The Jets, I think the Jets, if they make Darren Muji, their GM, has like all these draft picks, obviously, they have the potential to make this roster to get it in really good shape for when the young quarterback comes through the door. Yeah. I could see them going with one of the transition guys, like a Kirk Cousins. Maybe if Tua's cut.
Yeah.
I know that's, but it's, it's not going to be cost that much.
Yeah, in the backdrop for the Jets, Mina, and this applies to all of the young teams, but the Jets more than any team in the NFL. And I'm sure they're going to be listeners that hear this or viewers that hear this or see this and say like, yeah, same thing you guys say every year. The 2027 NFL draft, and I'm going to work to not use hyperbole here, is shaping up as one of the best that we have seen in maybe 15 years. And it's not just quarterbacks, it's pass rushers, it's wide receivers, you name it. There are special players here. It's been a while since we've had like one of those all-timer drafts. 2024 has a chance to really get there, but it's hard to say that just 2 years after the draft. I think it was 2014 that year. It was, I have to go back and check the exact year, but like there was, what year was Von Miller taken? Whatever year Von Miller was taken, I apologize for this. I think it was Cam and then Von Miller. I think it was Julio Jones and A.J. Green. I mean, just like a who's who of future, in my opinion, Pro Football Hall of Famers. It could be one of those types of drafts, which is important to note just because there are going to be some teams. This is not the NBA where we're, tanking completely and obviously.
Yeah.
But we're going to have some teams that are making decisions knowing that a little bit of patience might lead to better outcomes in 2027.
Are we putting Cleveland in this bucket as well and keeping it moving as a team that it, shouldn't be considering any of the top end quarterbacks this year and should just keep, because oh my goodness, this Cleveland roster. I mean, the entire offensive line has to be replaced. Like they are in no position to get a quarterback right now.
Don't have a good grip on the Browns whatsoever. Obviously, the quarterbacks under contract for next year are Shedeur Sanders, Dylan Gabriel, and yes, Deshaun Watson, the final year of that 5-year contract that he signed when he was traded to Cleveland. Don't have a good grip on it whatsoever, Mina. They need to resurrect the entire offensive line. They need at least one more wide receiver. They're set at running back. Got a great young tight end, Harold Fannin Jr. The defense is ready-made. They hired a 58-year-old head coach. I don't know if, and maybe it's unfair to say that a 58-year-old head coach is not hired to sort of architect a rebuild, but oftentimes when teams know they have a long runway ahead of them, it's let's go find the sort of the whiz kid offensive mind. Maybe the Raiders are a good example here. The 39-year-old Clint Kubiak hired after the win in the Super Bowl. And it might take some time, but we're going to have the quarterback and we have the offensive coach. I don't know what to make of Cleveland, truthfully.
I don't either. Browns kept their GM. That also, when you think about this year potentially being a rebuilding year, maybe, like you said, like this could be okay, let's just keep kind of focus on fixing things. He's part of the reason why they're in the situation they're in, but it's neither here nor there. Okay, there's 2 other teams I want to get to. Let's talk about Indianapolis.
Yeah.
This is a really tough one because I keep seeing the expectation is that they're going to keep Daniel Jones, who was so great for them before he got injured. You saw some cracks emerge in the game, I would say, before then. So I don't want to overstate it, but obviously he was unbelievable first 6 weeks, 7 weeks or so of the season. This confuses me though, because he tore his Achilles late in the season. We now have seen 2 quarterbacks take a very long time to come back from Achilles and look anything like themselves. Granted, Kirk Cousins and Aaron Rodgers much older than Daniel Jones.
Yep.
But Daniel Jones' athleticism is a big part of his game. So when I say it's confusing to me, and I feel awful because obviously I wish that, Daniel bet on himself in a way, and this sucks. How is that a plan, though? Like, I am a little bit confused, Field, by that being the narrative. Can you explain to me what you think their thinking is and whether you agree with it?
So I think the plan is Daniel Jones plus something else. That's the plan for Indianapolis here. And I don't think that something else, by the way, is Anthony Richardson. I don't think it's Phillip Rivers. I don't think it's Riley. Maybe Riley Leonard. I don't think it's Riley Leonard, though, but it could be Riley to get things going. Not to sort of skirt like responsibility here, but so much of this, Mina, is dependent upon where he's at health-wise. And like they may know that he's on track or he's ahead of schedule or he's behind schedule. But I think Daniel Jones absolutely wants to be in Indianapolis. I think Indianapolis envisions a future with Daniel Jones beyond 2026. Got to find the right number, though, to get started, right? How much do you pay Daniel Jones this year? If you're going to give let's just say it's a 3-year deal, Mina. What's the number for Daniel? Is it 3 years, $100 million?
I'm not comfortable doing any. I'm just straight up. Yeah. He's coming off of Achilles, man. Yeah. Like, this is not an ACL. Like, we just saw 2 quarterbacks who can't move now. Like, I don't know. I feel crazy.
Yeah.
I'd love to be wrong. I would love to be wrong. I'd love to, but it's just like.
So I'll set the number at, I'll go 3 for 90 is just my just guess here right now on Daniel Jones. And for the Colts, the concession is that you don't know what you're going to get this season. The upside for the Colts is that if Daniel Jones plays like he did this past year going forward, then $30 million in quarterback terms is a bargain, right? It's half of what the top paid quarterbacks are making. That's a big bargain for a guy that did play well last season. But I think you have to have a Daniel Jones plus something else plan, because what does 2026 look like? I mean, anytime ownership has to announce at the end of the season that they're not making a change with the coach and the GM, it means by default, Mina, the coach and the GM are on the hot seat for the next year. That's just how it works, right? Now, if they come out and they win 13 games next year, they will not be on the hot seat. But they have to either make improvements or have like a pretty clear and obvious trajectory that in 2027, with a fully healthy Daniel Jones, the team is ready to compete for the Super Bowl. So if I'm Chris Ballard, the GM, I'm not risking it with Daniel Jones, and that's it. The plan has to be Daniel Jones plus somebody else. Is that feasible?
Plus him.
Is there a perfect option? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I just don't get how this team can go into next year with all the pressure, whether it's spoken about, felt, not felt.
Everyone's seat is hot there.
The pressure is there. Like, let's just, you and I mean, at this time last offseason, we could have told you from a mile away, the Giants as an organization were under a lot of pressure, right? And the coach gets fired halfway through the season. They keep their GM, Joe Shane, but another one where at the end they had to announce they were not going to make any changes at general manager. So this is a team that obviously has to do something this upcoming year. Running it back with just Daniel Jones is risky, but this is not the year to need not just one quarterback, but potentially 2.
Right. There's a lot of teams where it's like, okay, they need a contingency plan. Minnesota, Indianapolis, and Atlanta, which is kind of the final team we haven't talked about. Another team where it's like, okay, Penix got hurt. Mm-hmm. He was up and down before then even.
Yeah.
We're going to give him a chance, but you obviously need some form of competition. You talked about Cleveland being hard to figure out. Atlanta, for me, I'm just like, who's the competition? Because the difference between them and Cleveland, the Jets, is this is actually, like, Atlanta was a couple missed field goals away from winning the damn division.
It's ridiculous.
Defense is headed on the right track.
Yeah.
I love the Kevin Stefanski coaching hire.
Sure.
You have good players on this roster. So that complicates things, because you're not just like, let's just throw some stuff at the wall and see it sticks, but we're rebuilding anyways and we're waiting for next year. They should be competitive.
Yeah, they should be.
I legitimately, like, let me throw something out. Should I have mentioned Malik Willis as a possibility for them?
Yeah, probably. The only thing I'd say about the only thing about Malik Willis that I would say with Atlanta is that if Atlanta signs Malik Willis, it's over with Michael Penix Jr.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's an acknowledgement that he's just not for us, right? Whereas if they were to go down a path of one of these veteran quarterbacks that has less upside, but also is more cost controlled and is older, it's like, hey, we don't know when Michael's going to be ready this upcoming season, but we have our plan in place until that time comes. The Browns, I'm sorry, muscle memory there. The Falcons have been non-committal on Michael Penix Jr. so far this offseason when Matt Ryan and Kevin Stefanski and their new GM Ian Cunningham have spoken about him. I again, to get dorky about the cap here for a second, the Falcons restructured Kirk Cousins' contract just at the end of the regular season in a way that essentially sets them up to cut him on Monday or Tuesday of the legal negotiating window. The only thing that I would mention is that restructure does not prevent them from subsequently restructuring again. So I think if Kirk Cousins has a chance to, if it's possible he returns. He makes the most
sense there with Kevin Stefanski. That's right? When you say veteran quarterback, I'm like it keeps coming back to Kirk for me.
Yeah, and he has a good work. And by the way, he has a working rapport with Michael Penix Jr. I'm not saying that Michael Penix Jr. would be offended or something like that if the team drafted or signed, some other veteran quarterback. You and I both know this is one of the more mentally tough young guys who's been through a ton already. Like, I'm not worried about Michael Penix Jr. and his toughness, but like the quarterback room is so important, Mina. Like it matters so much to these coaches. And it works right now in Atlanta. Like it seems like Michael and Kirk have come to develop a good rapport and relationship that if you can find a deal that's amenable to Kirk and he wants to be there, because he does have some, both sides have a little bit of leverage here. Kirk has more leverage right now because if he's on the team on the third day of free agency, he's guaranteed $67 million in 2027, Mina. That ain't happening. So if Kirk wants to become a free agent, he's got that right. But if he wants to stay in Atlanta, cut the cost down to, I'm just making this up, a 1-year deal worth up to $15 million, maybe $10 million base value, that to me would be a logical conclusion here.
I think so too. I kept like doing different, like I was trying to musical chairs them and I was looking at Atlanta and I just kept coming back to Kirk. And I was like, I guess like, Aaron you could look at, but Mac Jones would have been a possibility if he was on the table, but I don't think he is especially not for what they would give up. But yeah, it makes sense. And the other aspect of this, again, it keeps going back to the draft. If there were like a ton of quarterbacks, if this was like the 2024 quarterback draft, a lot of these teams, we would be having different conversations about what they'd be willing to do. Yeah. But it's not like I've watched 3 thus far, so I've got a long way to go, but like it's just not. So
it's gonna get better, Mina. I'm just telling you that.
That brings me to my final talking point on the quarterbacks or discussion before we take a break, which is, okay, Mendoza's one. Okay, fine. Which of all of the teams we discussed do we think is the most likely to either maybe trade up into the first or take a quarterback in the second? I think it's Arizona.
Okay, yeah.
Is there any other team you think that I'm missing that not, again, of the teams we've discussed where you'd be like, they could take a quarterback either late in the first or in the second round?
Miami would be the other one. And go back to what we referenced earlier, GM, John Eric Sullivan.
Agreed.
I think it was 17 years in Green Bay for John Eric. And I'm almost positive that he's a Green Bay lifer. Like that's what the Packers do. They breed future GMs. And what do all the members of the Ron Wolf scouting tree love, Mina? It's quarterbacks, right? Like they draft them a year or years before they need them. There's no such thing as too many of them. So Miami, which would be around pick 40 in the second round, like some of the names, and this is not comprehensive. I'm not saying these guys are going to go there, but like, could Drew Aller go in the 40s, Mina? There are people that would tell you he should go in the 4th round. I'm just, if a team is going to take a quarterback at the top of the second round, and we presume Ty Simpson, or at least I presume he's going to be gone at some point in the first, then the names to consider would be the likes of Drew Aller, Garrett Nussmeier.
I'm watching Nussmeier right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's slim pickings now, Mina. This is not the year.
I would be wary if I'm Miami. I know they got to do something, but like they need to fix that roster. So But if the value is there later, then it changes the equation. All right. Let's take a
Miami
quick
and
break.
Arizona, good picks.
Yeah. Let's take a quick break, come back and talk about the biggest free agents and some of these position groups. All right. We are back. Let's start with receivers. So there's a bunch of names. First of all, there's a possibility A.J. Brown could be on the block.
Yep.
That's something to consider. The belle of the ball is, of course, George Pickens, who could get tagged by the Cowboys. And then you're looking at Alec Pierce, Romeo Doubs, Mike Evans, Wan'Dale Robinson, Rashid Shaheed, Debo, Jennings, Keenan Allen, Christian Kirk. There's a lot of pretty solid number 2s and 3s. Pickens and Pierce, to me, are the kind of most intriguing names. Let's talk about Pickens, because that's the one I am having the most trouble deciding what I think should happen. Okay. So on one hand, so Dallas might tag him. I think they probably will.
They will.
Maybe by the time you listen to this.
But
the decision is
the window closes. He will either be tagged or extended.
So the question to me is not whether they should tag him, because I would tag him, because you could tag and trade, by the way. It's should they give him a deal? I am so torn on this, and I want to get your thoughts on it, because on one hand, I'm like, first of all, last year he was I voted for him All-Pro. That offense was gas with him and Lamb. You're in the prime of Dak's career. He was great last year and opened so much things up with the run game. It's amazing. On the other hand, the Dallas defense has so many holes, and the Bengals spooked me. I'm just going to say it. I was team T and spooked. So what would you do if you were the Dallas Cowboys?
I would tag and do things normally and extend them, and not make this like a marathon boxing match where it has to go into the last minute and there's public sniping and there's way too much discourse on it. No, I want to extend George Pickens, and I'll deal with that. If that becomes a problem, if we're too oversaturated offensively, I'll deal with that on a different day, Mina. And I'm not saying you should make moves just for the court of public opinion. But amidst a very, very bad offseason last year in the court of public opinion, because they traded away Micah Parsons, the Cowboys also executed maybe the best value trade in the league, right? I mean, like getting George Pickens for what they did was a masterstroke. This team needs a win. They need a win right now, right? And I'm sure there are Cowboys fans, analysts that see or listen to this and say, that's not a good reason to extend a player. And I hear that argument. I do. It's also a damn good player. Like you can trade George Pickens on an extension. You can. And in the meantime, like it's doable. And in the meantime, you've got if you trade him and you extend him, if you tag him and you extend him, Mina, every other resource you have this offseason is going to go to the defense. You've got picks 12, you've got pick 20, you've got enough resources. You have enough resources this offseason 12 and 20 to do enough on the defense. And I'm sick of the, I don't know. I mean, it's great for our content, right? Like you and I have been on those NFL Lives on, June 28th, where it's like, here we go, day, whatever, 100 on the Cowboys and Micah Parsons saga. What's new? Nothing, but let's talk about it, right? That's something we rely upon. But at the same time, they just have to do one of these normally. Like Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb.
Normal. No,
Zach Martin. Like, why can't any of these be normal? The people would do backflips to have the problem of trying to extend a player of the caliber of George Pickens or Zach Martin. Like, think about some of the teams that have lean draft classes recently. And the Cowboys, for whatever reason, every year this is how it goes. But I would extend him. The number is tricky, Mina.
We don't have to get into that. Yeah.
I think just to throw it out there, Mina, I think it's somewhere in the range of 4 years and $32 to $34 million a year.
Really? You don't think he'd want more?
Well, I mean, the tricky part is, what's his teammate, CeeDee Lamb, make?
Yeah.
I mean, CeeDee was 4 for 140, which is 35 a year, right? CeeDee was maybe he was 4 for 136, which I think he might have been 4 for 136, which is right behind Justin Jefferson. Like, despite the great year from George Pickens last year, CeeDee Lamb is the number one wide receiver in this offense, right? So you got to be kind of mindful of it. And I'm sure George would be asking for $40 million a year. Why wouldn't he? Right? I mean, The market's changed, and he's a
So
great
yeah,
player. Yeah.
I think you make a really great case, especially just because he's like such a sure thing and he's so good. And I also think, the 2 first-round draft picks is really important with the defense. This is a team that's been pretty good at drafting, although they haven't really had hit on defensive stuff. I mean, Micah wasn't that long ago, but
No, it's been a minute though. It hasn't been as good recently.
Yeah, Overshown. Azaraku looked good last year, but you still need
strong.
that stuff.
Yep.
There's just so many holes: linebacker, corner, nickel. Like there's a lot. I do think you let people call you. You listen, but he is very good. The other player I mentioned, I don't want to so people might say like, really, you're putting Alec Pierce in that top tier category. So I want to just hit on him really quick. Alec Pierce. So this will be mentioned a lot, obviously, in his free agency. Averaged 21 yards a catch last year.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between him and the number 2 player, who was Christian Watson, was same as the difference between Christian Watson and the number 26 player.
Wow.
You just cannot in the NFL overestimate how much teams value explosive players. And the thing I'll add about him, Field, that I think was so impressive last year in particular, but you've seen this. He's not just like a speed burner, separator, and gets wide open kind of guy. He wins with size too.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's a big dude, but I think he's a more complete. Like some of these catches are contested catches. He's got good concentration downfield. So I think he is a much more complete player maybe than people give him credit for. And if I'm looking at teams like New England, Tennessee, like there's so many teams where if you got a big armed quarterback, I feel like he's so appealing as a free agent.
Yeah, Mina, people might be like poo-pooing the concept of Alec Pierce being the second wide receiver we dive into. Just wait until the contract is, whoever reports it, probably Shefty. Just wait. It is going to be a monster. That's what free agency does, but it's going to be a huge deal. Like maybe it's, I don't know, if you told me it was $25 million a year, I wouldn't be totally stunned. Maybe it's closer to 20, Mina, but it's going to be huge. So I think I'll tell you, I think sneaky Romeo Doubs is going to be not that far behind.
I like him too.
Romeo Doubs he's not the biggest guy. He's not the fastest guy. He's kind of had an up and down tenure at times with Green Bay. He was suspended by the team as recently as the last year for, I think it was conduct detrimental, right, Mina? Like, this is a player who hasn't always been like the smoothest path, but dude's pretty damn good. Get open, catch the football are the first 2 things that you worry about for wide receivers. He can do both of those things. Good after the catch as well. Very good route runners, Romeo Doubs. Guys had a ton of touchdown production. I think Doubs is going to cash in at a bigger number than people realize as well.
Yeah. I think like you look at teams that just need like a reliable first down machine, a guy who's good against zone, a guy who gets towards touchdowns, who doesn't drop the football, like Baltimore, for example. Like,
sure, yeah.
I think he makes a ton of sense. Jennings is like kind of like the budget version. I mean, like to me is another guy who I think could make a little bit more than people think because of that appeal. All right, let's keep it moving. Running backs. This is a stacked running back group.
Yeah.
I actually when I started going through them, I was, because it started when I was thinking about Kenneth Walker and whether the Seahawks, who decided not to tag him, by the way, would spring for him. But then I started looking at the names and I thought, ooh, this could bring down contracts and also make it more likely that teams are willing to move on because there's so many good options here.
Yeah.
Just to name some of them: Kenneth Walker, third, Breece Hall, Travis Etienne, Rico Dowdle, Javonte Williams, Tyler Algier, J.K. Dobbins. I mean,
so you've got specialists too, right? You've got guys like Rashad White and Kenneth Gainwell that are awesome in the passing game. Like you've got just
Gainwell forever.
Yeah, Gainwell's so good.
Okay,
but you don't have a good draft class. Bad draft class.
That's what I'm hearing. Yeah. So that I think will also influence this. So let me start. I'll give you my answer. Of all the names I mentioned, there's a lot of teams that obviously need them: Denver, Kansas City, Houston, Dallas, Arizona, potentially Seattle. Is there a back you like? And you can address this not as like the guy who thinks going to make the most, just from like value, production. Is there someone where if you were a team, you would be eyeing them, or maybe a match even that you like?
Yeah, I mean, the value play is definitely Kenneth Gainwell. The guy got 1 year, $4 million last year.
He's always good.
He's always good.
He's always good.
And he showed last year that there's more rushing upside than I think people probably gave him credit for. Clearly, the NFL did not give him did not see much value as a runner because he got just a 1 year contract. He's amazing in the passing game as well. Any team that needs a pass catching running back, lock it in. Like, Kenny G is worth your time. He's so good, so reliable, so dependable. He became Aaron Rodgers' favorite receiver by the end of last season. I think Breece Hall makes the most money out of those guys, Mina. He's the most obvious, like, pay him, maybe not top of the market, which is now $20 million for Christian McCaffrey, but maybe somewhere in that like $14 to $15 million per year range. The Jets have all this cap space, Mina. Like, they have to pay somebody. They decided not to trade Breece Hall at the deadline last year when everybody else got shipped off. I'm not like the biggest fan of pumping $15 million a year into running back when you're as bad as the Jets are, but I also like consistency within a plan. If you're not going to trade him, what's the point of not re-signing him too? Yeah. You know what I mean? I would have rather taken the 3rd or 4th round pick you could have gotten for him at the deadline last year rather than hold on to him for the last 7 games and then see him walk. And then, Kenneth Walker is the most intriguing out of this group because he's coming off of Super Bowl MVP performance. And in the right scheme, like if you put him on a winning team, I could see not a perfect comparison here, but this could be, to me, like Josh Jacobs has been for the Packers. Like, awesome player. We don't assume that a winning team who's got all these other cap concerns, because good teams have lots of good players. They don't often have a ton of good cap space, that you're just like, no, well, like, we feel like he's the missing piece. I mean, he was unstoppable over the last 6 games of the season. Unstoppable.
He's a tricky one for me because he's a little boomer bust, right? The success rate.
The reason why he wasn't playing as much for all those
but
for
then
multiple years, right?
He has the thing that not many of these backs do, which is he's so explosive. He was,
oh my God,
33 explosive runs over the regular season, but then like in the Super Bowl alone, he had most of the Seahawks explosive play. So like, to your point, I think he's like a very specific back, not in terms of, not for me as much scheme, but like need, like who's the team where it's like, this is just the final piece. I really like, so when I look at backs, I've said this before, I really like to look at NGS has this rushing yards over expected per carry stat, which is like really trying to isolate what the back is responsible for. And I've found it to be pretty predictive of like continued efficiency. And Dobbins was really good in the last year, but he's got the injury. But looking at that number, Breece, Javonte Williams, and Rico Dowdle all tied with a pretty decent mark. So, obviously Hall was in a tough situation. For example, Dowdle and Javonte were in much better ones, but ultimately the numbers that netted out the same, which I do think bodes well for Hall. I thought the Cowboys should have just kept Dowdle, and then they signed Javonte and he was good too. I think Dallas is, another team that needs it back. But I think either of those players, Dowdle and Williams, would be decent value signings because I can't imagine they'll make a lot next season. But I thought both were pretty. The one that I'm a little wary of is ETN.
Yeah. Am I wrong for thinking that like that feels like he's just going to head right to like? I think Jacksonville is going to keep a lot of this core together for the vibes.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, Lloyd.
Devin Lloyd. We can talk about him. And I'm not saying like they're only doing it for the vibes, right? But like they gelled so well last year and they talent maximized so well that I think players will be highly motivated to stay there. And not for nothing, no state income tax, right? Like, I don't know, do the math on these things, Mina. Like if you're California is like 13% or something versus 0 in Florida. Like if you sign a 4-year, $50 million contract and you're taxed 13%, I think like that's like $7 million less to go play for the LA Chargers and the Jacksonville Jaguars. That's real money, Mina.
Yeah, no, I hear you. I would let him go personally, but that's
I know.
All right, let's keep it moving. By the way, Field has to leave after we finish the offensive players. I'm going to do the defensive players on my own. Offensive players. Let's continue with the tight ends here. Interesting group.
Yep.
Kyle Pitts is the headliner. Goddard, Otten, you want. It's very pick your flavor, right? With tight ends.
Totally.
When you need, some of these guys are basically receivers. Auden's like a more complete tight end, which I think I would be surprised if he's a little more appealing because of that to certain teams. Likely in Baltimore, David Njoku, Darren Waller, who was like sneaky. I feel like if Darren Waller was on any team other than Miami, it would have been a bigger story last year.
Totally.
That actually like came back and looked good. Kolar, who's a blocking tight end.
Yeah. He'll do well. Like sneaky well.
Well, I think all these blocking tight ends, like especially after watching the the Super Bowl, I'm like, maybe this is an area that teams should invest more in because teams that want to replicate that Seattle offense, I feel like it's such an important. There's other offenses around the league that are similar. But let's talk about Kyle Pitts because he's the most interesting name here.
Yeah.
Kyle Pitts last year, second in receiving yards amongst tight ends, like the quietest behind, of course, Trey McBride.
Well,
do you feel like that, like surprised hearing? Like, do you feel like people didn't talk? I don't know. It's just kind of snuck up on everyone, I feel like. And then obviously Drake London got hurt and that contributed to that as well. But isn't that kind of shocking?
It's beyond shocking, Mina. As you know, a big part of my portfolio here at ESPN is, of course, fantasy football. And there are certain players that at some point, I just abstain from analysis. I just say, like, I put a number next to Kyle Pitts to rank him, and then I don't explain myself. I just let hey, this is what it is, and you figure it out on your own, people, right? Because after all these years of thrusting all my support behind Kyle Pitts and being bitterly disappointed, I realize if I just don't talk about him, I won't be as emotionally distraught if he does not perform to expectation. And this year we got the pleasant surprise. It's going to bring up the age-old question of, is this a contract year glow up for Kyle Pitts, who started to really feast when Drake London hurt his PCL late in the season? Or is this a player who came into the NFL as a 20-year-old rookie who is like not even in the prime of his career yet? I think it tends to be more the latter. Like, could he be a sneaky tag candidate? They've got a lot of decisions to make, obviously, in Atlanta. One thing I have noticed about, new GMs, and this is not a negative, and it's certainly not a negative towards Ian Cunningham, who is a great, talk about somebody who had a ton of respect within the scouting community. Still does, obviously, but he was one of those guys, which is a matter of time before he got a job, we're in the business of keeping good players, tends to be like an axiom that they live by, especially early in their career. I don't know what to do, Mina, but if he gets the open market, $15 million a year.
Yeah.
You know what contract is throwing me for a whirl and throwing, I think, all the prospective tight ends for a whirl, Mina? Mark Andrews. Why did the Ravens extend it for 3 years and $39 million?
I don't know, but it makes me think Isaiah Likely's gone.
He's gone. I mean, he's gone. And the logical explanation, Mina, is that, as we know, they were trying to get something done with Likely as well. Charlie Kolar, you mentioned a minute ago, there was a time where the Ravens had no tight ends under contract for 2026. Hey, you try your best with Likely, nothing gets done. You got to secure some portion of the room, and you get something. You basically take the deal and you say, you want this, Mark Andrews? And he takes it. Franchise legend. That felt like a classic pay you for what you've done, as opposed to pay you for what you're going to do going forward.
Yeah.
But that if you're Isaiah Likely, that's a bad example because Likely had a disappointing season, so it might be harder for people to understand. But if you're Kyle Pitts and Mark Andrews gets 3 for $39, you're going to the open market saying minimum $3 to $4 million per year more, right? I mean, why wouldn't you? You're a way better player than Mark Andrews right now, and you're way younger as well.
Yeah, I think people will be surprised by how valuable he ends up being. That's all. In the same way that I was surprised when I just sat and looked at, second in successful plays, despite being 12th in target rate. Just, he's never going to
Mark Andrews. And I was like, what metrics am I missing on Mark Andrews right now?
I know.
Yeah.
I also think the other thing I think is kind of interesting about the tight end position, we can move on, is one thing that's really changed in the NFL is you're seeing younger tight ends have more success early.
Yeah.
It used to be a position that really took a while to master and learn, but through a combination of NFL offenses becoming more college-like and just some unusual talent, like last year's class, unbelievable. A lot of because I noticed when I was looking at the tight end measures, I'm like, okay, there's McBride, there's Pitts, and I was like, a lot of young dudes up here. It happens quicker than it does, and that could affect free agency as well. kind of the flip side of the linebacker position, where I always say I would sign a free agent linebacker because it takes young linebackers a while. Devin Lloyd being a great example of that, by the way. I feel like the opposite about tight ends. Like, I'm like, oh, actually, you can get pretty good pretty quickly.
Loveland might be my favorite young player in the NFL now.
Field. Loveland, Warren, and Fannin are already amongst the best tight ends in the NFL.
It's insane. How many combined all pros for those guys? Plus Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, like guys that are Sam Laporta if he gets healthy again. Like those are all guys who
AJ Varner in the Super Bowl.
Oh my God. Varner's amazing. Yeah.
I think that's a longer conversation, but I think sometimes development curve for certain positions can also affect, as if you're a team, like what are you looking at and how comfortable are we drafting and developing versus signing. This is a big part of why, by the way, running backs were always undervalued, because they could come in and be so productive so quickly. It wasn't like hey, we need a veteran back per se. All right, let's finish with the offensive line, then I'll let you go because you got stuff to do. So I'm just going to read. I grouped them all together because whatever. But some of the big names: Tyler Linderbaum, the Ravens center; Rasheed Walker, the left tackle from Green Bay,
will do really well.
I really like Isaac Seumalo, the guard; David Edwards, guard; Ali Vera Tucker. There's a lot of interior offensive linemen.
Ed Ingram as well. I throw in there.
Sorry,
Ed Ingram from the Texans. I throw in there as well. Had a great year there last season.
Better than I thought he would be for sure. There's some tackles: Luminor, Braxton Jones, Braden Smith, and then now just moving across positions: Bitonio, Zeitler, Brown, Wilkinson, Jonah Williams, Zion Johnson, who's younger. But the big name, to me, the big two are Linderbaum and Walker. Yeah. Would you agree with that? Linderbaum being a tier above?
I was going to say, I would put Tyler Linderbaum in a category by himself. I believe, and I think I texted you this, Mina, he's the 2026 version of Milton Williams. And what I mean by that is two guys who, let's assume that the Ravens don't tag Linderbaum, get to free agency. A lot of these guys that get to free agency have a red flag, right? Like age, health, performance, whatever it might be. Milton Williams got there because Philly didn't, they just had they had too much investment in the defensive line. They have so many guys they got to pay. We all know. Linderbaum, same deal. One more Cap Nerdum thing, but like he plays center, but for the 5th-year option as a first-round pick, the price tag was reflective of all offensive linemen. So it would have been like a $23 million option for the 5th year, which the highest paid center in the NFL is at like $18 million. So the Ravens don't want to pay him $23.5, which is $5.5 million more than sort of the top of the market, because if you're Linderbaum and they're willing to option you for $23.5 million, then your starting point negotiations is, how about a 4-year deal at $23.5 million per year? I think Linderbaum's going to set the new market for centers, and it's circumstance that got him there. I think he changes the offensive complexion right away. I think he's got a case to being one of the top 2 to 3 centers in the NFL, Mina. And I think that the number is going to be big. And then by the end of next season, wherever he plays, we're going to say, when Milton Williams signed, sticker shock value, right? Now everybody's like, holy crap. Like he was, for all the things the Patriots didn't do well in the Super Bowl, like Milton Williams was like he has been since he got back from the injury. Awesome.
Can I throw out a crazy idea for Linderbaum? Because any team, there's so many teams around the NFL. I mean, Baltimore might try to keep him. I mean, there's just, I've kind of poked around and asked people, and people are like, wait, where do you want it? Like this? Why not the Raiders? Yeah. You have a rookie quarterback. You're bringing in.
I love this idea.
You're bringing in a head coach who's going to implement this Kubiak zone blocking scheme, which we know he's a really, really good zone blocking center.
Yeah.
You need a center to run the thing and set protections. You have a good left tackle, but this offensive line was a disaster last year. The quarterback, I think, I'll talk about him a lot at length, very good, but there's going to be an adjustment period. He's never played under center, by the way. So, and, Jackson Powers Johnson, they thought he would play center. He didn't play center. Seems like more of a guard, et cetera. If you're the Raiders and you're going to break the bank at one position, why not choose a position that can help your young quarterback and also your run game in a way that desperately needs fixing?
And Mina, the counter from people will be something to the effect of the Raiders stink. They're not going to be good for a while. Tyler Linderbaum's going to be good for a long time. Like, this is not a 31-year-old center that like still has one good contract left in him. Like, this is not the Raiders signing Trey Hendrickson to try to further beef up their pass rush. Like,
yeah,
Trey that's a whole other conversation. This is a true blue, not even in the middle of his prime center that could totally last beyond. Like, this could be a 2-contract player for whoever signs Tyler Linderbaum.
And if you're like the lesson from Chicago, just go all in on the offensive line and offense with the young quarterback. Screw the defense. They'll figure it out later. Yeah. You got one job. So anyways, Field, you have money jobs. You got to get going. I don't want to hold you any longer. But this was a ton of fun. I'm sure you'll be back to talk about the draft. Going to take a quick break and come back and talk about some of these defensive free agents. All right, we're back. I phoned a friend. Field Yates and I were just talking about all the offensive free agents, Greg. And literally, while we were talking, you were texting me about whether or not you had overrated Tariq Woolen. Greg, I know I've mentioned this before, does an amazing list every year, ranking. It's quite an undertaking. The top 100 free agents. And is the list out? When does the list come out?
The list does not come out until Monday morning. But I've learned from making this list that the earlier I make it, like the better I feel resorting. But now I'm just tinkering over and over.
You sent an email always asking like, who should be higher? Who should be lower? Yeah. One of the players on defense I sent you, I'm like obsessed with, I think should be higher. But before we get to the corners, let's just go the order I usually go in and talk about the pass rushers first, if that's okay with you. Looming over this is the possibility of a Max Crosby trade. Raiders fans don't like it when you bring that up. I'm just saying, it's just something I've seen. I'm not an insider. I'm not, I do think it's notable that they like promoted his did you see that? They promoted like the defensive line coach, I think, or they gave somebody he's close with a job promotion, which suggests that they're trying to keep him to me.
And Clint Kubiak, mentioned that he had coffee with Max Crosby on his first morning in the building. So that's a good sign.
Max Crosby kind of quietly runs the Raiders, for those who don't know. So I did suggest right before you came on that the Raiders should spring for Tyler Linderbaum. So who is he your number one, was it? Or he
was in the top 4. I've been tinkering with that too. I'm thinking about putting Malik Willis over him, but no, I had Pickens 1, Linderbaum or Malik Willis 2 and 3. Okay. Jaelan Phillips is there near the top 2.
Well, let's talk about Jaelan Phillips. Okay, so pass rushers. Phillips is my top. Hendrickson. I've seen a lot of people who have Hendrickson over Phillips, which confuses me a little bit. But and then you've got a mix of younger players and veterans: Boye Mafe, Odafe Owe, Khalil Mack. I would put kind of in that next tier. Then you're looking at, Bradley Chubb, Kwity Paye, Joey Bosa, different sort of names and needs. Phillips, though, you just said is your number one. I agree. I also feel like people are underestimating him right now. I've seen some numbers floating around that strike me as very low. So I guess, Greg, that's probably because he didn't have a lot of sacks last year. He was 6th in pressure rate amongst all edges, but only, had 5 or single-digit sacks. But I thought he was transformational in the Eagles' defense. I think he's such a complete player. He plays the run so well. I think he is a player who's had that sack production in the past, so it feels a little fluky to me. He was healthy last season, which is notable. He's still very young. Like, what am I missing something here, or do you think it's just the sack numbers?
No, I'm tempted to put him number 1 overall, because if it was my team, I love where he's at. The back-to-back injury years, you could look at a few ways. They were really serious injuries, but the fact that he looked that good the first year back, I don't think anyone made more money this year than Jaelan Phillips for himself, because it would have been tough if he was a free agent last year. Odafe Owe, who we'll get to, is in that mix. But no, I think he's a complete player. I do not imagine the Eagles want him to leave the building. Yeah.
He's such a dream fit for Vic Fangio's scheme that and, the other pass rushers looked fine, but there's a reason why they traded for him, right? He was a necessity in some ways.
And he's so complete. He's so tough. And I do think you could look at the injury the other way around, which is now a year further removed from both of those injuries, which were pretty devastating. I think he could be even better. And so it's pretty rare a guy like this gets to free agency. Something weird has to happen, like a back-to-back injury year and Miami changing their entire organization. And so, yeah, I'm still tinkering. I'm tempted to put him number 1 overall and easily over Hendrickson. To me, it's more of a debate whether you want a 32-year-old Trey Hendrickson or you get younger with like a more less complete player in a Dafe Owe or Boye Mafe.
Yeah, I could see Hendrickson on like a little flyer deal, kind of like a mercenary track at this point on. I mean, we talked about destinations for the quarterbacks. We haven't really done, and the running backs. Didn't do destinations for the receivers and whatnot. But like, I think the problem is like a lot of the teams that for Hendrickson, a lot of the teams that need edge have longer timelines. Like, I do wonder if a team like a Buffalo, like a team that's in it to win it now, might be inclined to just do a short term deal with him. Maybe a Kansas City. Maybe I mentioned Buffalo. Like, are there any teams you feel like that loom out there who like I'm looking at cap space right now who just need an edge and might do like a 1-year deal because it could put them over the top?
Well, the Patriots, who are going to lose Chase on, I'm not sure how they feel about Harold Landry, come to mind. The Bills, certainly. The Chargers are in this weird spot that Khalil Mack and Adafe Owe are free agents, and they are not afraid to spend money on the defensive line, so they pop in too. But I think he's good enough. He's different than these other mercenary like Khalil Mack or Joey Bosa types, where he can get 2 years of guaranteed good money, whether it's 2 for 60 or 2 for 50. Like, you're not going to get Trey Hendrickson, I don't think, at that big of a discount.
So the Bengals actually have a decent amount of cap space because of the way the offensive contracts are structured. I would love for them to go after one of the younger guys like a Mafe or an Owe just to bring in some competent pass rush. Between those two players, I think it's an interesting debate. Mafe was part of, a rotation in Seattle. The advanced metrics really like him. He was actually 8th amongst edges in pass rush win. He's a complete player. He defends the run. He's been really good his entire time in Seattle, but I would say good, not great. Owe was a player who was, again, like he was a first rounder, not as, I think, productive as they would have hoped in Baltimore, but really came alive after the trade to Las Vegas and was Los Angeles, and was excellent after that. He has a lot of athletic tools and upside. The finishing is always a question. Between those two, I don't think I'm leaving. I think I would put them in the same tier unless you think someone else belongs there. Is there anyone you have a preference for?
Like, my personal preference, I just like watching Boye Mafe on tape. He pops. He's so fluid. I have asked around, and I feel like it is definitely consensus that Adafe Owe is going to get more money, and people aren't going to ignore the production because it was crazy at the end of last year, including in the playoffs. He had 2 forced fumbles and 3 sacks. That'll help him get paid. I don't think he's as good a run stopper. I do think he'll get more money. Personally, I like Mafe, and you said good, not great. That's absolutely true, but there's so few good, not great players at premium positions that get to free agency at his age that he will get paid great money, I think.
The defensive tackle group is a lot thinner.
Way thinner.
Who's your highest ranked defensive tackle?
Jonathan Franklin Myers.
Who I like. I think
player, but 31, right?
Yeah.
And has been to free agency before.
That was such a weird, I always think about how weird it was that the Jets like traded him for nothing, and then he was awesome in Denver. But yeah, I mean, DJ Reader, the ageless Calais Campbell.
I just underrate him every year. So this year I was like, I don't care how old he is. I'm just putting him in the top 50, like automatic, because he's the best bargain every single season. So
it's going to be good forever.
Stop doing it. Yeah. No good young players, though. Logan Hall might be the best guy coming off a rookie contract, which says a lot.
There's some specialists, like if you need a Daquan Jones or a Joseph Day. Sheldon Rankins, I think, can still play. Onyemata, but there's just it's not a very stacked group. I don't see, there's certainly no Milton Williams types. Nobody jumps out to me as someone who I think is going to command a large contract. We can even skip over this. I just wanted to name the players. I do want to talk about the linebackers. Now, this to me is an interesting one. Devin Lloyd is the headliner. All-Pro
Mm-hmm.
Devin Lloyd coming off of his best season. I don't know how. I think it's very hard to rank these guys because they all do such different things. But it's some combination of Nakobe Dean, Leo Chenal, Quay Walker, Devin Bush, who was like kind of, resurgent. Alex Anzalone, who's very active on Twitter. Do you see him chirping at the Lions? Social?
I need to follow him, and I need to be worried because he's one of those guys that keeps getting lower and lower on my list.
Careful. You have vets like Demario Davis, and then my beloved Caden Ellis, who I sent you. He should be higher on your list. Let's talk about Lloyd because that's the big one. So the Jags, the Jags didn't pick up his 5th-year option, and he responded by having the best season of his career. He's only 27 years old. Obviously, the turnovers are the headlining, or the interceptions, the headline grabber. But I thought he was good even outside of that. You know what I mean? He just saw such market improvements in both coverage and playing the run. So earlier, when we were talking about ETN, and I said I thought the Jags should move on from ETN, Field talked about like, okay, but the Jags, they want to ride the vibes of this season. To me, that's just keeping Devin Lloyd. Like, I think I would be very surprised if they let him walk, especially they got their defensive coordinator. He's staying as well. Do you think he is going to be too expensive for them, or do you think he's a Jacksonville Jaguar next year?
I think he's probably going to be too expensive for them at this point because they're not going to use the tag on him because that includes edge players. It'd be $28 million. And I just, at this point, when you get this close to it, he made enough flash plays. I'm with you, though. It's not just about the splash plays. He is a little bit of an old school linebacker that can be boomer bust, but I think the improvement was coming in his 3rd season. You could actually see it. He improved to kind of a consistent player. And we always say that this is a position you develop slowly at. Yeah. So ultimately, I think some other team will give him maybe not Zach Bond money, but close enough to it that it's too much for Jacksonville.
Yeah, I was saying how with Field, like tight end now, you're seeing such success early that kind of changes how you look at the free agents, like seeing like, oh, these young. Whereas linebacker, like it just year after year takes a second. Like I love Jihad Campbell, but I think it's going to take him a second, and obviously
even Nakobe Dean, his teammate, who's in this market. But now I feel great about Nakobe Dean.
Yeah, I feel great. I mean, if I'm like a lot of these players, I would be interested. I think it's very scheme specific. I do want to hit on Al Ellis though, because I mean, I just think he's a weapon. Like if you're if you've got a creative defensive coordinator or your defense that likes to blitz a lot, how do you not go for a Caden Ellis, who I believe is the best blitzing linebacker in the NFL? I don't know if that's...
I love this. I send this list out to the people I trust their opinions the most, in part because I want them to say things that I kind of believe, but I'm not ready to do it. And your love of Caden Ellis, that's all I needed to hear, is to put him even higher. Because I love Caden Ellis. The godfather of NFL Network, Steve Weiss, who I look up to so much, he is Caden Ellis' biggest fan. He thinks he's like one of the best players at his position in the NFL. And I'm with you. Even though he's 31 years old, he'd be a great signing.
Sack machine. 17% pressure percentage when he blitzed last year, which is extremely high. That's like what top end edge rushers hit. And it's been that way now for years, right? This isn't like he has a unique gift for getting to the quarterback. This is not like a 1 year, Jeff Ulbrich got him blitzing a lot and he got to play with better rushers. I do wonder Atlanta with, James Pierce with his, what's going on where he, was he charged? I don't want to misrepresent this, but there was an incident at the Super Bowl. Pretty.
He's being charged with 5 felonies. That is fair to say.
So I do wonder if there might be more of a priority to keep Ellis to have some pass rush juice in that defense and keep things going. But I really like him as a player. Interesting safety group.
Mm-hmm.
I actually struggled with who to put on top here. There's a lot of good. There's definitely no like Jesse Bates, but you've got a mixture of good young and veteran players. Brian Cook in Kansas City, Cam Curl with the Rams, Jalen Hawkins, who was pretty ascendant with the Patriots on the other side of the ball, Kobe Bryant, who I thought was playing really well in Seattle this season, and then some older guys, Kevin Byard, Jibbo Peppers, who did you have as your number one safety?
So many guys. I settled on Brian Cook because he's just a
Yeah.
maniac and seems to be peaking. I do worry sometimes the Chiefs make these guys in the secondary look so good. Is that part of it? And then they don't keep them, but I don't want to hold that against them.
A lot of the Chiefs. I've wondered that too. A lot of the defensive backs who have left have gone on, like look at like a Justin Reed who's like still, like, yeah. I think that makes sense. He's young. He's pretty complete. I think I love the way he plays the run. I think he's like a really great tackler. I think Cam Curl is really solid for LA as well. They're one where, because I think they're going to go young. They're probably going to draft a cornerback. I wonder if they want, and then they're obviously all in with Stafford coming back. I do wonder if they're going to want some continuity on the back end and try to keep him.
They gave Quentin Lake that money. He's someone, it's funny that I got some response, one saying I have him too high, one has him too, thinks too low, because he's just that solid guy. And you can find safeties in free agency. Jaquan Brisker is another interesting name out there. Nick Cross is an underrated player for the Colts. Jalen Thompson actually just got a decent contract. It's just like there's guys, and I always overrate the safeties because it's the rare position you can find plus starters at, and then they don't get that much money. But I do think they're good players.
If you could tell me that Brisker would be healthy, I would actually pick him over all of these guys.
Right.
But obviously he has the concussion history, and
he's my favorite. Almost every snap. It was crazy. Him and Byard, I think, essentially didn't miss a snap this year. If you could have bet on that before the season, those two specific players not missing an entire snap almost all season is crazy.
All right, corners. So I'm gonna have two discussions with you. One is about Jamel Dean and the other is about Tariq Woolen. But there's some other good players. Another Chiefs have a lot of Jalen Watson, Alante Taylor, Monteric Brown, who was like shockingly good in Jacksonville, Marcus Jones, who's an interesting Marcus Jones is like one of my favorite people to ask other people in the NFL about, because the opinions vary from we're going to attack him to he's their best player on defense, which is hilarious. But let's start with Jamel Dean, who's maybe not the best value, but the best player, I think it's safe to say, of the group. So
he's coming off the best season, no question.
He's coming off the best season. Jamel Dean this year, I sent these numbers to you because I was just like, oh my God. Like I remembered him being so good, but statistically it's insane how good he was this year. These are just using NGS's nearest defender numbers. A lot of passer rating of 41, which is the lowest of any corner, had the highest success rate of any corner, negative 0.49 EPA per target. And in man coverage, I thought, okay, well, what, the Bucks play a lot of cover three. When they played man, passer rating was 53, second only to Quinion Mitchell. He is 29 years old, so he's going to be turning 30. He has had injuries. He didn't play the whole season. He missed games. What do you do? Right. So the comp to me is like a Carlton Davis who was the same age, and the Patriots gave him a pretty sizable contract. Do you think that's overvaluing him because of the injury history? Because I view them as like similar values to an acquired team.
And I think Dean might even be just a better pure corner.
I think so.
And Dean is so strange. Bucks fans know this well because his games played are always really high. He's always just leaving games. Like he leaves the game and then he's back the next week. But he's such a good example of how tough it is to evaluate the cornerback position. I think I underrated him a little bit because it was an electric season he's coming off. But I try to look at the last 3 or 4 years, and like a lot of these cornerbacks, like he's up, he's down, he gets a big contract from the Bucks. Then he ends up having to take a pay cut going into last year to stay on the Bucks, and then he pops back up with an awesome year. But you're right. I think pure peak, like what's the best chance to find an all-pro, let's say, for 2026? Jamel Dean is probably your guy, even though he's a little older. Can you get him on like that Carlton Davis type contract? I think that's fair, and I do think that's what he'll get, and why I'm going to put him a little higher than the list that you saw.
Reek Woolen is.
I'm struggling.
I said Marcus Jones was divisive. Reek Woolen is probably the most divisive free agent in the entire. Would you say that? Like,
yes, and then when I thought about it too, like, would I feel confident giving him big money? And if not, because the ceiling is obvious, and yet I don't know. Like you've watched him every single play of his career. What do you think about him, betting on him moving forward?
Okay, I'm just pulling his age because I know he's really young. So, okay, so he's 26 right now. So he's going to turn 27. Selected in the 5th round in 2022. Seahawks fans, I feel like don't like him or are hard on him because he can be very up and down. The highs are super high. As like the back-to-back plays against Puka Nacua in the NFC Championship, where I think like a perfect encapsulation of like the high and the low, right? Like the play he made before he taunted Puka Nacua or the sideline was an unbelievable play. He is 6'5" and built like, I've compared him to one of those guys outside of used car lots with the like inflatable, like he's just, you can't teach that. And he's so long and he's got great instincts that even when he does get beat on like double moves and whatnot, his recovery speed coupled with his length erases it. I think he's actually gotten a little bit better at tackling, but he's not a good tackler. So those are the highs. The lows are the next play. He gave up a big play. Like, it happens. Mentally, he has lapses. He has penalties. There's been some pretty big mistakes and high leverage moments in Seattle. And I don't know what you do with a player like valuing a player like that is really hard. I think coaching staff is everything with him, like landing in the right room. Seattle, you could argue, was like the perfect place.
Right. I was going to say, it's hard to think of a better situation. It does worry me a little bit that, let's say, like Josh Jobe is getting more snaps overall. I know they're different sorts of players. And so as I've gone through this process, I backed it up a little bit from the ceiling and thought about him more similar to Alontae Taylor, a player I personally love and is different stylistically, but I kind of think is in a similar bucket of a boomer bust. The highs are really high, and maybe there's
I'd much rather have Woolen than Alontae.
I still think there's an Alontae Taylor out there.
You've always liked.
He's gonna have one great like all pro season, but it hasn't happened.
Is he your new Kaiser White?
I mean,
I think I like the middle class, like Watson and Brown. I think are both good players who I bet won't make too much money. Like, I think there's a decent group of like not guys who. I mean, I don't think Woolen's going to break the bank either.
He could do well, but there is some interesting guys in the middle, and then even like the further middle class. Marcus Jones, I would consider part of that too. Like,
yeah.
Asante Samuel Jr. was a guy I had pretty high on this list a year ago, and he did show he was healthy, and I thought played pretty well for the Steelers. Like, he's going to be an interesting kind of mid-tier signing. Your guy, Josh Jobe, is out there. There's actually pretty good depth of players who had good starter snaps. Kobe Durant had a pretty good season overall for the Rams. Not a great player. Cordell Flott had a good season for the Giants. There's actually a decent amount of young players that are available.
Jobe might be the reason why Seattle doesn't bring back Tariq Woolen, to be honest, because if they feel they can get him at a reasonable contract. But I thought he was a terrific tackler. Saw him make a great play in the Super Bowl. I think he was, he's not perfect, but like I thought he was pretty damn good in Seattle this year. Really impressed me. Yeah, it's definitely not. There's no superstar. I think there's some imperfect options. Dean is my favorite, but I think that has to be a win now team to me. Well, I mean, maybe not, but it has to be a team that's willing to structure a contract that's probably a little bit front heavy.
I'll give you two more names. I always like buying low. Trevon Diggs has shown you he can do it at the NFL level. He's not going to cost a lot now because people are going to make the facial expression that you just made. I don't know if Nahshon Wright can ever do it again, but hell, that was lightning in a bottle. He's a free agent, and so I hope he gets paid for it.
It was a main character in every game he played this year for some reason. All right, that'll do it on the defensive players. Greg, when does the list drop?
It comes out on Monday before the combine starts, yeah.
Okay, so this comes out on Wednesday, so in a few days. Go check out the NFL Daily Podcast, wherever you get your pods. I'm sure Greg will be talking about it a lot then. And in the meantime, I am going to get back to watching Garrett Nussmeier versus Clemson. Oh, thank you, as always, to my friends at Omaha Productions for making this. Sorry, I was so obsessed with thinking about getting back to watching Peter Woods. Thank you, as always, to everyone at Omaha Productions who makes this podcast: Kirsten Sebecki, Owen Saylor, Tucker Tashton, Jack Foster. And I'll see you guys on the other side.